Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Hot Topic. We have a very special guest who is backstage and going to join us to talk about her spiritual journey. Her son was abducted and murdered 28 years ago, and she's looking for answers. We're here to support her, and we're excited to bring her out and find out how she's doing, how she made it through, and what she's doing today. She's also an entrepreneur and an author. Before we bring her out, let's welcome the star of our show, Mr. Red O'Loughlin. If you are new to our platform, Red is a very good friend. He is also my book coach. He has helped me take all of my 6 books so far and have them be Amazon #1 new releases or Amazon #1 bestsellers. He is also an expert when it comes to longevity. He researches everything that has to do with health-related issues, and he's also an incredible author and publisher himself. Let's welcome him to the program. Hello, Red.
Hello, Dr. JACALYN. Good to see you again. And again, happy birthday from last Sunday, and congratulations again on your latest children's book on being #1 new release for the second time, which is astounding.
As of yesterday, I just happened to go onto Amazon and there was again. So thank you for all of your hard work, and thanks to our team. So Red, we're going to be talking about crime today. We're going to be talking about loss and a spiritual journey. And before we bring out Paulette, I'd love to just spotlight you for people who are joining us for the first time and give a little bit about your background, please.
Thank you so very much. I'm a researcher. I research the human body at the cellular level, chemically speaking. I look for cause and effect relationships. Treat a cause, fix a problem. Treat a symptom, and you'll always be treating symptoms. That's what I have a passion about. That's what I enjoy doing on a daily basis. I've written almost 1,000 original content articles on LinkedIn. Almost all of them have to do with some aspect of health or wellness. My real concentration is on longevity, age-related items. I just came out with the book, maybe 3 weeks ago, on understanding the causes of Alzheimer's. And it's available on my website, redolaughlin.com, and also on Amazon. But there's a lot of things that we can do in order to improve our health, but most of us have no awareness of it. The education processes are not there. And that's where I really like to delve into things. Well, what causes this to happen? Well, what caused that to happen? And if you know what caused that to happen, what caused that to happen before that? And that's kind of where I try to take things. And so as I'm looking at various things, this causes that causes that. Sometimes we have the ability to stick our finger in the dike and stop that little bit of leak and stop it completely, or maybe just slow it down where we end up with another 10 years of real quality life. That's what I do. I also help people with their books. I've helped Dr. JACALYN with 6 of hers, and I think she has, let's see, there's 4 more on one series, and she's starting another series of 7. So she's a very dynamic and a very ambitious writer. And we have a very, very tight schedule on getting her books out. And I'm helping another 6 or so people that are almost exclusively new authors. And we get those books published, and I try to make happy campers. So anyway, back to you, Dr. JACALYN.
Thank you so much, Red. And, we're going to bring Paulette out. I think it's interesting what you just said about cause and effect. Sometimes there's no answer that we can really understand about why something happened, that we had nothing that we did or that our family members did warranted the outcome. And that's what we have here today. Paulette Everette-Norman is joining us from Texas. Welcome to the program.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Hi, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for taking this journey. I can imagine that it must be painful to go through it every single time, still looking for answers and yet still dealing with the loss of your son. What do you want our audience to know as it's been 28 years and you're still searching for answers?
It's been a long journey, but after 28 years, I am now participating in a documentary with a film company out of New York City, and then in a podcast with a radio and TV station out of Utah who are delving into some unanswered questions about McKay's case.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And when can our audience expect to be able to watch the documentary or hear the podcast?
Both are tentatively scheduled to be released in the fall of 2023.
Right around the corner.
Yes,
Fantastic.
ma'am.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, Paulette, what I'd love to have you share when we think about what Red was talking about, cause and effect when it comes
Yes,
to our
ma'am.
health. We can pinpoint things sometimes we still have questions. There is no answer, there's no justification for what happened to your son.
Absolutely none. As with any crime that involves a child, there is no justification. You do not harm children. If you want to get on my bad side, you harm the elderly, the handicapped, children, or animals. And we won't be friends. I am not patient or in any manner with anyone who thinks that harming children, especially, is an okay thing to do. We hear it every day on the 6 o'clock news. Every week, something pops up, and it is a disgrace that we still have crimes against children. Our nation needs to address this. Our schools need to address it. We now know schools are still very, very vulnerable places for our I call them our babies, and that there's no excuse any longer for protections to be provided for our children's safety.
Absolutely. You're so right. Every day there's some other school shooting going
Yes.
on. There's crime. And what I'm wondering is, do people just become numb to it when we see it on television all the time? Do we think that we don't have a role, that we don't have a responsibility as humanity to get involved instead of just watching these stories take place?
I think people live in denial, and I have this saying that sometimes denial is all you got, and some people live that way. And we are quick to say, well, that won't happen to me, or I do this or that, so I know that that's not going to happen to my child. Well, your schools and your homes and all of us need to be keenly aware of our surroundings and what we can do to protect our children. And then, in the event that someone walks in with intent to harm, we know what to do then also. And our schools do need to have more, just that we have to protect these children. In order for learning to take place, schools have to be safe. McKay, we thought, was safe in our home. We had an alarm system. We had we had a secret room in our home. We had our utilities away from the house so that they could not be disabled. They weren't in a place where someone could conveniently disable them. So we knew that we were at some degree of risk due to our socioeconomic status, but we didn't anticipate a friend, the husband of the first grade teacher that I had taught across the hall from, is who took McKay. So you have to be aware that anyone can harm your child. And it's usually, sad to say, someone that knows them.
Paulette, could you go into a little bit of detail, because a lot of people here are not familiar with what actually happened, and you're bringing some details in now, but I think in order to understand the bigger picture, if you could just summarize it, that would be essential for everybody understanding.
Certainly. In September the 12th, 1995, I had one son. That's my only son, my only child. And McKay, back in 1995, was home. We were a few miles away in downtown Conroe. And while we were away, the husband of a first grade teacher that I taught across the hall from came to the door and abducted McKay. We did not know, that there was any risk. Certainly, if we had known, we would not have left McKay at home. But there was a risk. There was a severe risk. And we would call home. Carl would call home, McKay's dad, every 30 minutes and try and, make sure McKay, everything's going okay. We'll be home at, in this much longer. And we're just spot checking. And Carl called home and didn't get an answer. So he rushed home. He left me at the restaurant where we were at that time. And when he arrived home, the back door was ajar, and Carl went in calling McKay's name. McKay didn't answer, and the phone began to immediately ring. And when Carl answered the phone, it was a ransom demand. And when they, how much money they wanted, and that they would call back with a place to leave the money, and, the typical what you see on the movies. And then Carl immediately called law enforcement, and then the FBI was called in because of the ransom demand. McKay was taken on, that's a Tuesday, was the 12th, and McKay's body was found in a swamp in Louisiana the following the Sunday after the Tuesday. And McKay, from what we could piece together, we would probably never have all the story, but McKay was, we think, according to the FBI, that McKay was probably told we were hurt. So he opened the door and frantically left. And somewhere along the way, maybe McKay realized I've been deceived, I've been lied to. And then McKay was put in the trunk of the car. And then somewhere along the chain of events, McKay was bludgeoned, we think, with a very large flashlight, because there was an indention, a curved indention in the trunk on the edge of the trunk of the car. And then McKay's body was dragged through the swamp like a bag of fertilizer. And then he was shot twice and left in the swamp.
How long did it take everything to figure all this out?
Well, he was taken on Tuesday, and within a couple of days, the FBI immediately, they had their processes and procedures that they followed. And they, a lot of people criticize the FBI. I commend them for how they handle missing children. But they have their processes and procedures, and they ask us to make 3 lists. Who would McKay open the door for? Who would, just simple things. And we were to list people under each one. And the person's name who appeared on each list was Hilton Crawford. So they immediately narrowed their focus to Hilton Crawford. All of our friends showed up. We lived in a very large home, and it became packed with friends. And guess who didn't come? Hilton Crawford and his spouse did not come. They kept calling the neighbor to get an update. Every other friend was there. Every other friend was praying for McKay's safe return. So they narrowed the focus pretty quick. So within a couple of days, Hilton Crawford, they impounded his car, and they, questioned him. And then they eventually arrested him, and but he would not give any. He said he abducted McKay but didn't murder him. And then through a chain of events on Saturday, which were just unbelievable, he drew a map of McKay's location, of McKay's remains location. And so the FBI, went there and found McKay's remains.
Paulette, first of all, I have to say I'm so sorry for your loss. I just have chills just hearing your story. And I'm wondering to myself, this isn't a suicide. This wasn't a health-related death. This was an incredibly hideous crime that was perpetrated by an adult who was a friend. So not only do you have the loss of your son, which is so hard to even comprehend, your only son, but you have a betrayal, the worst kind of betrayal by a friend. And now you have a crime that's been committed. And yet you're at the heart, you're a grieving mother. How did you manage all of this?
Not well at all. On the Saturday before McKay's body was found on Sunday, I was asked by Carl and the FBI to go to visit with Hilda Crawford's wife and to forcefully ask her to go to the jail and ask her husband to draw a map. And that even if it meant taking her two sons, but don't leave that jail without the map. And a lot transpired on that day. And when I arrived back home, I couldn't even drive myself out there because I didn't understand that. I was 45. I still call myself at that time, I was young and dumb. I didn't understand things that can happen physiologically. So when I got back from asking her to go to the jail to have her husband draw a map, I got back home and I told Carl, I said, I have to lay down. I feel like I have glass shards all in my body that I've been stabbed all over. And I was dragging my right leg. My left arm was palsying and my eyesight was going kind of wacky. And I didn't know I was on the verge at 45 years of age of a stress-induced stroke. So on Sunday morning, Carl knelt by the bed. He woke me up. I had laid down and he woke me up, and in the room were FBI agents, law enforcement, friends, and the pastor and his wife. And he knelt by the bed and woke me up and said, Polly, I'm sorry, I wasn't big enough to get McKay home. And immediately my neck went back. I started making this funny sound. And I told myself, there goes my heart. There goes my kidneys. It was like an old TV station or TV, that the screen would go black and there'd be a little white dot. If you're old as I am, you know what I'm talking about. And that's how I felt. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't in my body anymore. I was looking down. And I saw them washing my throat with the washcloth. And I thought, I'm disturbing them with the sound I'm making. And the next thing I knew, I wasn't in the bedroom anymore. I was in heaven because I saw 6 angels carrying McKay into an amphitheater, and they had him on their shoulders. And of course, being a mom, I was yelling his name, saying, look at me, just look at me one more time, just one more time. And he didn't. And then God told me, you can't stay. Now, God didn't ask me if I wanted to. He didn't say, would you like to? He said, you can't. And while I was in heaven, I'm one of those intense worry, got to get things done people. And I had the most relaxed shoulders and the most a peaceful feeling about me. It was wonderful. I've not had it since. And I was back in the room. The room was very quiet, the bedroom, and I tried to move and I couldn't. I tried to speak and I couldn't. And so my mind began to process. And my first major in college was in psychology until I went down. I was on my last psychology course, and I liked that, and one foreign language course, and to get my degree. And I was in abnormal psychology in an auditorium, and I was about halfway up, and it's a very demure little professor, and I kept seeing her hand that looked funny. So I walked down after class and I said, "What happened to your hand?" And she was missing a piece of her finger. And she said, "A patient bit it off." Well, I'd already been going to an institution for children and being there to help with them, and also out at the state institution. But that day I went, I'm changing my major. And I changed it to education. But I knew from all my coursework, I remember professors saying, we never use all our brains, and that certain parts of the brain can pick up what other parts don't, when other parts fail. So I began tracking in my brain. I told myself, find another part of the brain that will help you move and talk. I added in my brain. I spelled in my brain. I said the ABCs in my brain, and I could tell my cognition was there. It's just that I wasn't speaking or moving. And so I told myself, girlfriend, you got the fight of your life. And then I heard a tapping. The lamp was on in the bedroom, and I heard a tapping. And I could roll my eyes. I could do that, and I could swallow. That was the first thing I wanted to know. Can you swallow? So I wouldn't have to be tube fed, and I could swallow. And I was assessing what I could and couldn't do, and that tapping kept bugging me. And I rolled my eyes over to look at the lamp, and there was a silly moth tapping, trying to get to the light. And my grandmother's words washed over me. My grandmother was my rock. My parents were reckless type parents. They weren't focused as they should have been, or as I think they should have been. But my grandmother was my rock, and my grandmother was a very strong lady. She looked at my grandfather one day, who was Irish and who loved his whiskey, and she said, "It's me and the 5 kids, or you can take your whiskey and go." And he loved my grandmother, and he laid down that whiskey, and he picked up his Bible, and he began preaching. And he didn't have a church, so he was allowed to preach in the black churches in Mississippi. So I'm just real proud of my grandparents. But my grandmother would tell me, God knows you personally. Every hair on your head is numbered. He calls the stars by their names. And only God and only I knew that I had just finished reading Chuck Swindoll's book, Flying Closer to the Flame, where he says we need to be like that old moth trying to get to the light, and we try so hard we even singe our wings. So I was just so overwhelmed, and I told myself, watch for the little things. God is here. And my grandmother's words just covered me. And I was so grateful again for her in my life and for my grandparents on my mom's side. And but God sent that silly moth, and he knows me personally. And that was just the right thing at just the right time to help me maneuver through. And also, a couple of months prior to McKay's abduction and torture and murder, I always say, we like to say abduction and murder. We forget that middle word. When a child is abducted, then the span between that murder, abduction, and the murder is torture. It is not just a blip and a blip. There's that space in between. But for a few months prior to, I mentioned a person I highly respected at that time. I'm uncomfortable with. I don't like the book of Job in the Bible. I don't like that someone, I have to read about someone losing all their children. And it just disturbed me. And this person said, I think you need to read the book of Job 3 times. And because I did respect them, I read the book of Job 3 times prior to McKay's abduction and murder. It was my roadmap. It helped me so much understand when people would say things that made me uncomfortable or hurt me. I would go, oh, Job. And for the longest, it took me about 3 years in physical therapy. I spoke when I could finally speak, because that first day after I came back to planet Earth, and I realized I went, today, I'm very goal-oriented. And I said, today I will move a toe. But when I finally could speak, it was a long time. I would speak like an old, slowed down phonograph record. And I was told when I didn't receive medical attention, everyone thought I had just was reacting to the stress of the stroke, which I was. But when I was diagnosed, I was told, both sides of the brain were affected, the basal ganglia. But I went on a crusade like you would not believe, of going to physical therapy. I wanted to rebuild my own speech patterns because I grew up in the South, and I wanted to still be me, So I would go to hear different preachers, and I'd take a legal pad and pen, and I'm sure they thought I was taking sermon notes, and I was to a degree, but I was also going, that's it right there. I would say something like that. And I'd write down what they would say, because I wanted those patterns back that were me. But it took 3 years of intense effort, determination, tenacity, stubbornness. I was told, had I been a male and had the stroke, I would not have gotten as far as I've come. That a female brain tends to do better with strokes than a man's brain. So by the grace of God, I'm talking and walking. I still, if I get stressed, I may have a little delay, or my arm will feel funny. My left arm will feel funny. I do, if I get stressed, I will stump my right toe. So I do kind of watch those things and monitor myself in that manner. But I'm blessed beyond measure. I do believe what the Bible says, in all things give thanks. The first 2 words that I could speak were thank you. I also learned that how in the world was I to give thanks? So it was a struggle. I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. It was hell on earth. But I could finally say, thank you, God, for 12 and a half years with McKay. I could have had none. So I was blessed for 12 and a half years with the most wonderful son. And so for that, I'm so grateful. I also think that we all have a mission. We all have a purpose. And I think we all have, if we give ourselves over to evil, that purpose can go away and evil takes over. And any of us can do wrong. None of us, our choices determine our destiny. I said that every day. That was what we said in my classroom when I taught. My choices determine my destiny, whether I do right, whether I do wrong. And so it's been a journey. I think we all have a God-given purpose. We can get sidetracked, and we can get totally off the rails. We can do some horrific things when we give ourselves over to evil thoughts. We had your thought, it's evil, and then we let it go. We act on it, and that's not good. I think our children need to be taught these things. They need to be taught the golden rule. They need to be taught, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. These are things that we won't do, that are unacceptable. I remember a big, burly FBI agent. They started calling me Miss Paulette. He told me, he said, Miss Paulette, he said, there is an evil that walks this earth that is beyond our comprehension. And this was before McKay was found. And I thought then, if a big, burly FBI agent, a guy, has that awareness, we all best take heed and listen. But none of us are immune to, and none of us are immune to evil or to heartache. You know, you could be on the receiving end of the evil. It was devastating. It was unbelievable. But I became very determined that McKay would not have died in vain. I would not have suffered, and McKay would not have suffered in vain, nor would Carl and I have suffered in vain, nor would our community have suffered in vain, because McKay had a lot of friends that were so devastated and so disloyal. You know, he was 12 years old. Think about the damage that was done to his friends and their perception of life and how it should be lived. And this was the husband of a first grade teacher. What did it do to those children and their perception of life and how they responded to different things in life?
Paulette, your story is amazing, but we're getting toward the end of the show. And I think what's really important for many of us is parents today, if this was something that was going to happen, what 2 or maybe 3 things are probably the first things that they should be concentrating on if they had a situation similar to yours where they lost a child and now they understand the child is not coming back, whatever happened. How would you recommend to those parents to handle that stress in their life?
Right. Number one, seek professional help if at all possible. I did. I went to a lot of therapy. I would also say accept the responsibility that your healing is your responsibility. You cannot depend on, it's between you and the Lord, really. But there are people who think that if I read all these books, and those books help. I had a 40-book reading list from one counselor. That's good. But you've got to map out your healing and get up and move. I wanted to do nothing sometimes and get up. It took me half a day to get makeup on, and it wasn't done really good. But get up and move and do, and look at what can you do to turn the situation, as bad as it is, into something that is proactive and positive. Do not let it define you in a negative manner. I'm not saying I laid in my floor, and drooled and could only make moaning and groaning sounds. So I'm not lessening anyone's pain at all when I'm saying get up and move. But I went from the floor, moaning and groaning and drooling, and that's all I could do, to where I am today. Has it been easy? Absolutely not. Am I glad I did it? Absolutely, yes.
Paulette, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm wondering, what is the role of forgiveness in order to move forward in a spiritual journey? And have you forgiven?
I think my forgiveness was being able to stop and not be so caught up in so much anger that I couldn't move forward. And so I had to ball everything up and say, Lord, I don't understand this, but I do acknowledge that I am not a perfect human being either. I've not gone out and killed anybody. Trust me. I'm not lessening that, but I could say, Lord, I can only forgive all of this. That's my gift to me. My forgiveness buys no one anything. Absolutely nothing. That's my gift to me. And then I balled everything up and I laid it at God's feet. And it wasn't easy. And, I say, he did not take $1 from my purse. He took my only child. He lied to him. He deceived him. He put him in the trunk of a car. He bludgeoned him. He drug him like fertilizer in the weeds. And then he shot him. So each one of those, and forgiveness isn't a snap thing. You may be, if somebody takes a piece of gum out of your purse, that's a snap forgiveness. It took a long time because I had to deal with all of my feelings and every one of those little stages that he put McKay through. McKay was my greatest prize. And it took a long time for me to make a peace with it and for me to look at me and not be so focused on what wrong someone else had done, be it him or anyone else. I have to look at me, and I have to keep my porch clean and swept. And so it was a process. And forgiveness isn't easy. It's not meant to be easy when you walk through the devastation and war zone that I walked through. And then when I went in, I was diagnosed with PTSD because of the trauma. It was such a shock. And then when I could view all the files, I went into the DA's office and I viewed the photos of McKay's remains. So I've been in the war zone. I've been to Vietnam. I've been to Afghanistan. I know PTSD is real, but it's a choice I made to look at McKay's remains because I wanted a good North Star. I wanted a good compass point. And so those are the choices I made me a strong person. And I'm glad I made them. And my life is to honor the Lord, work for his kingdom, and to help children know how to be safe around people. Now I tell parents, if you've got an adult friend who wants to take your child for yogurt, why? If you've got an adult friend that just can't quite keep their hands to themselves when they're around your child, why? Those are red flags. Hilton Crawford wanted to take McKay for yogurt. Where's Hilton Crawford's adult friends? Adults have adult friends. Be very guarded. Don't feel guilty about being guarded with your children because they are your greatest prize.
Paulette, thank you so much for sharing those tips and also the journey of forgiveness, because it can take years and it can just be a process that goes on every single day of our lives, correct?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Because, it can rear up inside me, and I have to keep my eyes on the Lord and say, Lord, I gave that to you. I'm giving it back, back to you. And, he'll readily accept it. And, I'd prayed before I die prayer was to do more radio and television. Not that I ever had a career in radio and television. I didn't. My radio and television experience came because of McKay's abduction, torture, and murder. But so I'm doing more radio and TV, and he is opening doors every day for me to do those things. So he has heard and answering my prayer.
Well, I noticed that your Facebook and your YouTube channel is Paulette's Story to Glory. For those people who are audio today rather than video, is there any other way that you would recommend people contact you?
You're welcome to email me. My email address is M for Mary, P for Paulette, M for Mary, E for Edward, 5095 at yahoo.com. I'm working on other ways to get in touch with me. I just started this, and I just happened to know someone who was connected with someone who was connected with US Global, and suggested y'all.
Oh, that's fantastic. We have pulled up this website. Would you like to just walk our audience through what they can find here, why they should go there?
Oh, yes, ma'am. That's a picture of McKay on the screen. And then also on this, it will give our mission statement. It will give something about us. And on there, you will see a curriculum. The U.S. Department of Education, Sam Houston State University, Texas A&M, and Houston ISD helped me create a curriculum for children, kindergarten through fifth grade. And so I taught little ones, and there are my two books that are available. They are also Deadly Betrayal. I wrote with two criminal justice professors. And then I call it the Dragnet book. It's just strictly facts, and then the Waltz with Insanity is my journey. It's my early journey. So don't wig out when I say, forgiveness is God's job. That was how I could deal with it back then. And plus the FBI had said, please keep the attention on the perpetrator. The media will, he said that we were warned, we were coached. The media will want to ask you if you've forgiven him and get the attention on you and what you're doing. But we want to keep the attention on the perpetrator. I do think that it is important when there's a crime against a child that the family is respected, and that they are, they keep, the media's job is to keep the attention on the crime. But those are two books that are available. And then we just are, we've been doing this for 28 years. All of the curriculum are free. If you need a DVD of it, there's a small fee for that. But it was a way to give back to kids. The curriculum is used as far as California. We have schools out there, and then Florida, and then in the Bronx, New York. So it's been a journey. It's been a fulfilling journey. It hasn't always been easy, but if my efforts and the efforts of the Samuel McKay Everett Foundation can help one child, one mom and dad, one community not go through this, it's been worth my time.
Well, we really applaud what you're doing. And obviously there's so much more here to this story and to your journey. And we'd love to have you come back again and again so that we can continue to support your work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm just going to put up your banner again and spotlight you. And if you can just walk people through, they're not able to read the banner or they're listening to the program, how and where can they reach you?
Yes. Our website is www.protectingchildren.com. My phone number is 936-537-8025. My email address is mpme5095@yahoo.com. Facebook is Paulette's Story to Glory, and YouTube channel is Paulette's Story to Glory.
Thank you, Paulette, and thank you for sharing your story with us here today. We really do appreciate you, and whatever we can do to help get the word out and support your efforts, we're here for you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. We look forward to seeing you here again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
Wow, Red.
Yeah.
Really powerful story. And, it is incredible how one person's actions can affect so many people. And people, I think we all need to realize that the one thing that we do, the one choice that we make, what are the ramifications of how it's going to affect other people or even humanity?
Absolutely. The brain works in mysterious ways, and sometimes you can unlock it and be better, and sometimes you never can find the key. You can't find the lock. You can't find, and you're buried forever. And it's no matter which way you go, it's difficult, and it something most of us can't even imagine.
No, and I really do appreciate Paulette going through her story, because having not heard it from her, I've read about it, but you hear from her and you think, oh my gosh, she's been living with this her whole life, and she has to repeat it again and again and again and go back there. It's got to just be gut-wrenching on so many levels. And the one thing I really also appreciate that she shared is about the power of forgiveness, because we have to, for ourselves, we have to be able to forgive those who trespass upon us. And because if we don't, we carry that like the huge bag of bricks that we never get rid of. And just a powerful, powerful interview. So I'm really grateful that we have this platform and that Paulette came here, and whoever it was that referred her, thank you so much. Yeah. Red, how can people reach out to you, and who do you want to contact you?
Real simply, redolaughlin.com is my website. Red, the color red, R-E-D, O'Laughlin, OLAUGHLIN, redolaughlin.com. My books are available on Amazon. My primary focus is helping people get their books written. So if you have any questions whatsoever on writing, authoring, publishing, more than happy to help you. My two preferred methods of contact are on my website, my phone number and my email address. Just give me a call on the phone, send me an email. More than happy to help you. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. And I highly recommend that you reach out to Red. I give him a 10 plus across the board, but don't take too much time from him because I need him. So all right, we are going to close out. Our next show is coming up. It's the Corner Bookstore. And as we close out, I'm just going to play a couple of sponsorships, and then we'll be back with our next program. So Red, thank you so much for being here. Paulette, thank you so much to you. And thank you to you, our loyal audience, for watching and for passing the word along that we are here to support you and give you a place to share your stories. All right.
And I'll see you in a few hours.
I'll see you in a few hours. Okay, bye.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diane Boehm. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diane Floyd Boehm tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diane's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diane's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diane's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diane's delightful books and much more at dianefloydboehm.com. Visit DIANNFLOYDBOEHM.com. That's DianeFloydBaim.com.
When we speak, we don't hear. It's abundantly clear. Listening lazy creeping, and nobody's gonna win. Look someone in the eye. If you don't, they surely will cry. You don't hear a word I say, 'cause you always look straight away. Listening lazy, drive people crazy. Listening lazy, making us blue. Listening lazy, communication goes hazy. Listening lazy, listening lazy. Da 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 da. Listening lazy, driving us crazy. Listening lazy, making us blue. Listening lazy, communication goes hazy. Listening lazy, listening lazy. When you interrupt your friend, you will surely have to make amends. Lady Ella knows the way to help you listen better every day. And what's that?
It's listening lazy.
Ba-da-ba-ba. Listening lazy, driving us crazy. Listening lazy, making us blue. Listening lazy, communication goes hazy. Listening lazy, listening lazy. Listening lazy, driving us crazy. Listening lazy, making us blue. Listening lazy, communication goes hazy. Listening lazy, listening lazy, listening lazy.